Hello, everyone, and welcome to this year's first Wowhead weekly show. We haven't been here for a few weeks now, but it's time to catch up. Happy holidays to everyone, and let's enjoy the show today. Talk about all the latest things. The show number was 289. I feel like I forgot to mention that, so just to put it out there. We have a few things going on. We have the some PTR mentions, some cutscenes, some story notes, and just the little things here and there, which is nice to wrap up in a summary of our show. So that's what we're going to be jumping into. Before we start, though, let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Annie, or also known as Andy Fuchsia, and I'm a full time streamer on Twitch. My co host is, as usual, my lovely friend here, Perculia.
I run a Wowhead, and Happy New Year, happy 2022. And we took a break for the holidays as there weren't any PTR updates, but now we're back and we have some interesting things from the December builds to recap a lot of story stuff and also some interesting visuals. So I think we'll try to hit up the not spoiler stuff first and then move into more of the new cutscenes and quests and interesting books and dialogue that we found and wrap up with discussing, hey, Legion Time Walking, how did that go? Um, and who knows, maybe there'll be another PTR build in the middle of this because Blizzard is surprising. Uh, so yeah, I think we can start off with some of the not spoiler stuff, like the Warlock tier set helmet, which a lot of people were interested in seeing.
Commenting that the Warlock set did have a little bit of controversy going around with the shape of the hat, which was then adjusted by Blizzard, and we had a new version of it, which was less pointy, and now we have another new version of it, which looks like this. And
So
yeah, go ahead.
they're like bunny ears or bananas.
Yeah, whichever you prefer. And yeah, I don't know what I feel about this. Is it difficult to make horns that look like horns?
Yeah, I think that the horns could be more curvy, like the challenge mode mop set. Uh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like more Demon Hunter horns. I do think that the light horns are interesting because we're always talking about like cosmic forces, and it's like, well, what could a warlock look like if it was, aligned with the light? So I do think that the golden horns are interesting, but they could be less bunny ear like in shape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they could have been more, like you said, more pointy, like go back a bit more. If you compare to, like, let's say the Felheart horns, it's quite a
Yeah.
big difference. I don't know if
Yeah.
they specifically just wanted it to look soft and bunny like. I'm not sure, but it does look a little bit odd. I mean, it is better than none at all, to be fair. I think
Mm,
this is
yeah.
interesting, makes it look a bit more unique and different to anything else, out there. But it does look kind of weird.
Also, this glow effect will be present on all different tints. It's not like a mythic only effect, which I think is good.
That's cool. Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah.
good. And this is how it looks as a full set. I am curious how this would have looked like if the helmet itself did not cover the face. What do you think about that? Because then we talk about the Felheart again, and it's just horns, right? Maybe
Yeah, I
could have done
think
something like that.
maybe you didn't even really need a hood. It could just be like a little circlet with a red
Mm-hmm.
gem and the horn sticking up.
Yeah.
I think that could be interesting, and then that would also uh like get rid of the hood concerns. Sometimes simple is
Mm-hmm.
best. So
Mm-hmm.
I think
And
that could be an interesting solution.
And also, if it just looks like bunny horns, then at least we could walk around and pretend that we've got bunny ears, with no
Noble
hood
Garden
in the
Transmog.
way. Yeah,
Yeah.
with no hood in the way, it would literally just be golden bunny ears, and I think that would be great
Yeah, I
for
think
some
it's
variety.
also if it was just the golden ears, that could also be really interesting for transmog.
Exactly.
Because
Yeah.
it could be versatile. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I want to show I'm a warlock, but I'm, twisting other magical forces to serve me, the gold
Mm-hmm.
could be an interesting accent to like mix and match with older tier sets. So
Yeah, I really feel that with like with the Philheart, I'm mentioning Philheart for the third time. I'm really sorry. But with the Philheart, for
that's a good
example,
set.
you have the horns where sure it's like gray and green color to it,
Mm.
but other than that, it's quite freeform. It's not you're not stuck to wearing the entire set. If you want to, you can wear it just for the horns itself and make a lot of other kinds of set with it. With this, you're kind of tied to this sort of titany
Yeah, it's really
Shadowlands look.
bulky. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can't really wear this helmet with other kinds of transmog. It's stuck to having to wear the set with it.
Yeah. But
Oh,
overall, I do think that, it was still nice to see some progression with it,
oh yeah.
especially after the second version was like very mediocre, not really a change. So it's good to
Mm-hmm.
see that, maybe that was incomplete or you know, they decided to try something completely different as opposed to doing like, smaller things. So overall, I think
Mm-hmm.
that this was good.
Yeah, I think it's a positive that they went with another change, for sure.
Yeah.
And apparently, a PTR build has just been pushed.
Yeah. Fortunately, we have other people on the site working on it. If there's anything interesting, like a model or something else, I'll drop it into the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
I think there'll be some like tier set updates, I believe, because there were blue posts on them published last week. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I said PTR, so Brightpaw showed up. He's like, "Oh, it's the
Any
stressful time
adjournments?
of the week. Let me like
Oh,
be cute and something that she
yeah,
can pet." Yeah.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I guess just we'll continue on with the show until
Mhm.
there's something interesting to discuss.
Indeed.
But yeah, the next topic, I don't know what I feel about these. The raid titles were data mined for defeating Mythic and Hall of Fame Jailer,
Mm-hmm.
and the Mythic title is Guardian of the Pattern, which sounds kind of like tailoring ish. It's a little, I don't know.
Yeah, I
It's
think I need that as a collector. I just
yeah.
recently got this really rare pattern for my tailor, so maybe I should go and quickly get this
Yeah.
mythic kill just for that. No, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm a fan of this Guardian of the Pattern.
Yeah, it kind of feels like the issue where they get like too inside their heads with the cosmic story and they don't realize how it
the,
appeals to the outsiders. They're like, "Oh, like we're guardian of like, the keeping the universe all together."
it's like how can we make a title so cryptic and so five
Yeah.
head, playing 3D
Yeah.
chess to understand? This is what we
Yeah.
get.
Yeah.
um, yeah, I feel like what other alternatives or options would you consider for this?
Like
What similar thought
guardian of the
process?
Shadowlands, hero of the Shadowlands, like something Shadowlands specific. Um or like
Interesting. Mm-hmm.
guardian of reality if we're like trying to if Zoval wants to like unmake reality. Like I just think you need something more like
Reality.
badass. Like, yeah, like I
Yeah.
know I know if they're trying to go with like patterns and like fractals and like forces, but I think that's a little too that pattern
Vague.
just has other like associations with it already in the game like crafting and
Yep. I mean, if you
I
see
would
someone
just
with this
yeah.
title and you don't know what it's about, if you see it in a
Yeah.
different expansion, for example, it's not going to look like a cool mythic kill. It's going to
Especially cuz
look
like
like.
in the past it was things like like Titan Slayer like
Mm-hmm.
really big sounding things, so like
Mm-hmm.
protector of reality, hero of the Shadowlands, like just
Mm-hmm.
or like protector of the cosmos. Like if you're going to go big, use the super grandiose language for the final boss of the expansion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, it's the
uh,
final of the
yeah.
expansion as well. It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, you're right. I agree with that. Guardian of the Pattern. Just imagine in like future expansions when you see someone with that title and you had no idea where it's from. Like I'm gonna think they got it from crafting, and
Yeah.
instead it's from a mythic kill. I think
The
something with
Hall of
reality
Fame.
would have sounded cool. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Hall of Fame one is not as bad, but it's still kind of wordy. It is so it's all of them have to be like famed slayer or famed, bane of the so and so. And what's interesting is that this is famed bane of Zoval the jailer, and normally
Mm.
when you kill something, it's famed slayer. But Sylvanas, who lived, it was famed bane of the Banshee Queen. So it's like,
Oh.
will something happen there with Soval?
So
Like, is
he's
his
not gonna
work
die.
maybe, or like maybe he'll die, but like his problem still remains, so we
Mm-hmm.
didn't slay him. But another
Mm-hmm.
interesting thing is I think that the title would have worked better if it just was like famed bane of word. Because like famed bane of Zoval the jailer sounds kind of like a mouthful. Like, famed bane of
Mm.
the jailer, or like famed bane of Zoval, or like just something.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think something could be a little better
Yeah,
there.
I guess the jailer would have felt a little bit more concise and still
Yeah.
to the point. Um, Zoval doesn't sound as mysterious or scary. I think I would have liked the jailer.
Yeah.
Because the famed
So,
bane is or indeed a lot of words.
yeah. And like there's just so many, like if you're unfamiliar with the game, it's it's just like a lot of mouthful of things. It's like, what is a famed bane? Like, what is
Mm-hmm.
Zoval the jailer? Like if you took a break, you wouldn't really know what
Mm-hmm.
this is. Um
Mm-hmm. I
but
think
yeah.
people will always remember the jailer, whereas
Yeah.
some people might forget the name Zoval.
Yeah. Like,
Um,
if you just played in 9.0,
yeah.
or, like, you remember the trailer,
Mm-hmm.
or, like, the key art, it's like, you know what the
It's the
jailer is.
jailer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, yeah, I would totally go for, like, Guardian of Reality and Famed Bane of the Jailer. Like, keep it short, simple, relatable, as
Mm-hmm.
opposed to these titles. So,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
yeah.
agree with that. But
Um,
yeah, I mean, still cool to have more of these titles. Hall of Fame is interesting. It's still split between Alliance and Horde. Usually, to get the Alliance one is takes longer. I wanted to say it's
yep.
easier, but I can't really say easier when it's harder to find players to play with.
Mhm.
um, but yeah, another topic for another day of
Mm.
cross faction playing. Um, Maybe we'll see that one day and not need these Hall of Fames split up and just put them all in the same list.
Yeah, it really would have made so much sense after BFA, after we had the truce with the Fourth War.
Yep,
Um,
I agree.
like, Shadowlands didn't really have a faction conflict. If anything, in 9.2 we keep seeing like, you know, Sylvanas, being like neutral
It's
and
actually so true. It would have made
yeah.
sense after BFA to just scrap it.
Mm.
Battle for
Especially now, like
Azeroth, battle for. Mm-hmm.
Sylvanas is now trying to like help us save
Yep.
Anduin, and like,
Mm-hmm.
Alliance fixing Jaina, or like begrudgingly going along with it, in that cinematic,
Well,
you're seeing like,
cooperating with Bane too.
yeah, so it
Mm-hmm.
just seems like now would be a good time to show everyone being
Mm-hmm.
united to stop this threat.
Absolutely.
But
Maybe
it is
they
what it
use
is.
that as reasoning after Shadowlands, like in
Yeah,
coming into the
fingers
next
crossed.
expansion. They might be like, yeah, well, like we had BFA, and then that led to all these problems, and the Shadowlands will work together. So you know what? Now you can group up together, maybe.
Yeah. But yeah, that is that is a discussion for hopefully a future BlizzCon reveal.
I do think it's coming next expansion.
Yeah, I think so too, especially because in interviews they didn't use as like clear cut no language when people
Yeah.
would ask about this.
Yeah, they normally
Um,
say no when it's more than one expansion away, and when it's
yeah.
one expansion, it's like, yeah, like potentially, maybe.
Yeah. So, I mean, I do think that there could be some alliance conflict on the horizon if like Turallion is more like warmongering than Anduin, and like Sylvanas is, not a horde leader anymore. But I hope they don't use any alliance conflict hints as a reason to be like, oh, we don't need to do cross faction easing of restrictions. I hope that no matter where the story goes, they can, find some loopholes like they do for PvP, or be like, yeah, like there's like inter faction fighting, but most of the people, you know, get along at least enough to raid. uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Um, on a lighter note, talking about new transmog models, there have been some interesting weapons from Zereth Mortis rares, and one one model was originally in Tazavesh, but the other colors weren't used. And they've just kind of been sitting around for, months at this point.
Yeah.
And the remaining colors were added to different rares. So that should be something nice for transmog collectors to get, and
Yeah, they're pretty cool
they look
weapons.
cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's nice to have something that isn't super like beige and gold and, titany.
Mm-hmm.
And these look really fun, and I think we'll have like a lot of value beyond this expansion, and just, match a lot of cool things.
Yep. Do you
So,
know, someone asked if they're two-handed, but these are one-handed swords, right?
uh yes, they are one-handed.
Nice. So casters
Bright
can
Paw,
use them too.
no. Oh, no, 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 Bright Paw, come back.
Oh no.
I was returning shoes, and I put the box in a room he's usually not in, which is this room, and he just started
Yeah.
scratching the box I was returning. And I'm like,
Oh
no,
no.
that needs to be returned. I need to get my money back, right, Paw?
They're
Sorry,
my
but yes,
shoes,
they
man.
are, yeah. They are all one-handed swords.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Um,
We got some other
so
models too, right?
do we have other models? Oh yeah, we do, but I think these are more spoilery because they're related to like the Arbiter and the
You're
Jailer.
right. You're right.
Um, so there's a story
So,
component.
mm-hmm.
So,
Spoiler
we
tag?
probably want to, yeah, let's do the spoiler tag for that.
All right. Spoiler tag up
Yeah.
that direction. There it is. Since we are going to be talking about story related things, we have some models, we also have a couple cutscenes, and for people who are interested in lore, it might be a good time to mute us until this tag is gone.
Yeah.
All right, given people enough time to mute us. So we have this very interesting model of how would you describe this?
So we knew that the after Chains of Domination, that the Jailer stole the Arbiter's essence, and like the Arbiter was not you know, functioning in its current state, and we had data mining hints that there was a uh, new arbiter. Someone stepped up to be the arbiter,
Mm-hmm.
and with this model, it confirms that Pelagos has stepped into the new role as arbiter. So there's some parts that are the same, like the like interesting gold details and the kind of ethereal wings in a similar
Mm-hmm.
robe, but with this model, it's clear that like Pelagos has not been absorbed into the old model. Like it's it's like it's him as the arbiter. So,
Yeah.
the robes are different. The face is, not this faceless kind of like robot like thing. Like he still has a face
His
with
own features.
expressions on it.
Mm-hmm.
Um and I think that that's interesting because while he's serving in this role as the arbiter, based on the model reflects his personality and some things he says in the quest line, where he seems like more empathetic than the past arbiter. He has no like soul cavity. He's not stealing the jailer's essence. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he looks more like human. You can see that, yes, his skin is it's translucent, but it doesn't look like, a faceless
Yeah.
creepy robot. Um so it's like the arbiter with a twist.
Mm-hmm.
Um and we can also show you the cutscenes leading up to it, and then explain why he decided to become the Arbiter, since those quest lines were also available to play through on the PTR. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
we can play through both cutscenes, and in the first one, it's like a touching goodbye between Pelagos and Clea, and then in the second one, you see Pelagos with the new model we just showed on the screen.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. The first one is called Pelagos Becomes. There we go. All right. Let's watch it together then. It's a minute
Yeah.
long, so it's not too long. I think it should be okay.
Pelagos, what do you mean?
In service to the Shadowlands, I offer my soul.
What? No.
I have yet to ascend, Clea. Perhaps there was a reason for it.
But your soul! You do not have to do this.
I know. This is my choice, sister. My purpose.
I do not want to let you go.
Our souls are bound as one. We will never be apart.
A new voice freely offered. A worthy soul, pure and unburdened. Balance restored.
There it was. We actually had some of these lines, and we talked about it before, right? And
Yeah.
the conversation between them. I think we did it in our last show, or maybe the show before that. And now we get to see it. It's still a work in progress, as you could see. Everything is not final, but for the most part, you can see what actually happens there, and it's quite nice to see them hug as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of emotion in it for a cutscene. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think we've seen characters hug before.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of weird in some cutscenes where like there'll be an emotional moment, but the characters just show up by like waving their arms around. So it's nice to
Yeah.
actually be like, oh, like they're moving in ways that make sense for the story, which I think adds, you know, more emotion to it. And
Mm-hmm.
seeing the dialogue with what's going on with the visuals, I think the flow and context makes a lot more sense. Like,
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, just reading it, it could look abrupt, but then if it's like, oh, well, they were emotional and they hugged, and that's why there
Yeah.
was a pause, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, for
Uh,
sure.
so, but yeah, I also think that it's good to see that Pelagos made a choice that this wasn't a
Forced.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and it does seem to hint, with our souls are bound as one, we will never be apart. That
Yeah.
Pelagos is still remaining. It's not like he's gonna go off to like die or have his essence like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, stuck into some soulless arbiter.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And he feels like
so
it's his purpose.
yeah. And there was actually a line earlier in the quest line, which we can discuss more with this interesting Argus reveal, where he says something to the effect of, "Well, I think every soul deserves redemption." So it definitely seems like, he
Mm.
has this compassionate angle to his personality
Yeah.
that will carry forward
That stays
as
in
the
with him.
Arbiter.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So he
Um,
has a sort of view of how he wants things to be as well. So he's coming in and actually changing, potentially changing how things have been done in a way that he thinks, might be better overall.
Yeah, like if he's saying that every soul is worthy, he doesn't have all that complicated backstory of like, well, I'm a construct and I'm, keeping this essence away from the jailer, and I put the jailer into the maw as a
Mm-hmm.
punishment. Like, it just seems that, like, at the end of the cutscene says, a worthy soul, pure and unburdened. It seems that Pelagos's focus is just on, like, trying to help the souls in
Yeah.
Shadowlands, as opposed to this hidden purpose of keeping the jailer in exile, and that could lead to a more compassionate Shadowlands, because Pelagos has
Yeah.
also seen firsthand the problems that have arisen in Bastion with them being so set
Yep.
in their ways, and like Devos, like, rightly pointing out issues and then kind of
Mm-hmm.
being, like, warped by them and joining the jailer, seeing how, the leader of Bastion was, stabbed by, mind control Anduin. So
Mm-hmm.
Pelagos, I think, can understand how, like, being too set in your ways, as well as
Can
vengeance,
be
that can
bad.
cause problems.
Yeah.
So
That's very
why
true.
don't
And
we look at
Bastion lived
yeah.
through a lot.
Yeah. Why don't we look at the second cutscene, because that
Yeah.
further confirms that Pelagos has not turned into, like, a faceless robot.
Mm-hmm. Let me just double check again. We have quite a few cutscenes today, so I'm just making sure I'm playing the correct one. So now
Yeah.
it's Oribos Pelagos. There we go. All right, let's check this one out. Another 1 minute.
And tell Adrestes I am sorry I could not become an acolyte.
Somehow, I think he will understand.
Mawwalker, my friend, without you, I may never have found my path. Now I can direct the flow of souls to the afterlives they justly deserve. Yet one goal remains before us. To truly restore balance to the Shadowlands, the jailer must be defeated.
I have faith that the Mawwalker and their allies will succeed.
Go in service, friends. Oribos and all the Shadowlands are counting on.
Okay. There.
So with these lines, this is with his new model, new form,
Mm-hmm.
and you can see off the bat that he kind of has a like his sense of humor is remaining still. Like, he remembers
Yeah.
characters from his past. He's still talking to Clea. Um, he
So he's not
confirms
like
that
consumed by this thing, by his role, by
no,
his job. He's still himself in a way, which is
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, and it's not like the Arbiter, which felt like this faceless presence was judging you. It's like he
Mm-hmm.
is talking to people, which I think, he can get a better sense of the soul if he sounds just like a normal guy and is talking and has this very, still human experience and perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Um and he seems focused. Now I can direct the flow of souls to the afterlives they justly deserve. Like, it seems that, again, he's still focused on wanting to help.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing he cares about the jailer is about defeating the jailer. He's like not trying to do
Mm-hmm.
any cosmic masterminding stuff. Like, his purpose is just to help souls.
Like clear and direct. Yeah.
Yeah. Um so yeah, I mean, I also think that it's a nice wrap up of the story for Clea, that, like, she can still come to Oribos and talk to Pelagos and they still have their bond. It's not like her story is ending in tragedy, or, like, she was
Yeah,
so
it's
they
not
were so kind, and then, like,
mm-hmm.
she was, like, abandoned. So
Mm-hmm. She's not
yeah,
losing him.
yeah. And I think, like, it just feels so much warmer, like, even in,
Mm-hmm.
like, color tones, like, there's so much, like, warm gold on
Yeah.
Pelagos, and, like, the Arbiter was more, like, cold blue. It just feels that if you remember the very first cutscene cinematic of Shadowlands, where we saw how the Arbiter was dismantled, like, it looked so sterile, like, there was no, like, warmth or
Yeah.
personality or understanding.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it's like, I think that we've gotten to a better place where the Arbiter is just truly focused on directing the path of souls, and who knows, maybe maybe Pelagos doesn't think that there's a need for a maw if it's caused so many problems and he believes every soul has redemption. Maybe
Yeah, that's an
he'll,
interesting one.
yeah.
So where does he say that?
Well, it's earlier in the quest line, which we can get to next. The quest line leading up to this is where
Mm-hmm.
Leia and Pelagos and some others try to get different materials and
Mm-hmm.
essences to recharge the Arbiter. And Pelagos has
Gotcha.
a comment through questing that he believes, everyone is worthy of redemption, which, could also be referring, like hint hint, maybe Sylvanas. So,
Oh,
uh,
also true. Yeah,
yeah.
but it's also interesting in terms of the like the future for the Maw as
Right. Like
well.
if the mob was tied to the jailer and there was so much suffering and it was like a
Mm-hmm.
secret place where um anima was being funneled and
Mm-hmm.
now, there are hints that the jailer could like have been, Uther through Arthas and the Maw, and maybe he shouldn't have gone there. And Sylvanas had this vision of the Maw, but maybe her old self wouldn't have gone there. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe it's not, it's causing more problems than uh it would have solved.
Yeah.
Um like we've never seen a success story with the Maw. It just seems to be this like and now we had all those innocent deaths
Yep.
from late Legion and BFA
Mm-hmm.
go to the Maw as well.
Yep.
So Pelagos may not think that there's a need for it, and he could be inspired by how Bastion was open to change to change things his way as well.
Mm-hmm. So we have some
So,
more diving into this to do
mhm.
with Arbiter, and
Yeah,
there's connections to the Argus as well.
yeah. So the interesting bit here is that leading up to the cutscenes we just saw,
Mm-hmm.
um characters are trying to rejuvenate the Arbiter, and
Yep.
they finally, through all the chapters, we get the stuff for the ritual. But the Nathrezim disrupt it using Argus the Unmaker's soul, and that
Mm-hmm.
causes the ritual to fail, at which point, sorry, Pelagos steps up to become the Arbiter.
Yeah.
And we have this dialogue where it's long have we awaited this moment, the banished one's gambit made manifest, a world soul twisted by death, a maw with which to crush the arbiter, and now it shall take this vessel. Argus will be eternal.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is all
That's
coming full
crazy because it
circle.
all connects again to all those things so long ago.
Yeah. Um I don't want to like be a spoil sport. Like it's tricky because like it's very clearly that Argus is used here to disrupt the ritual, and I think it's
Mm-hmm.
like 90% certain that Argus was also the angry red force in the early cinematic that like destroyed the Arbiter in the first place. Like it all lines up
Mm-hmm.
except there were those few statements that made it seem like Ysera was one of the final souls to go through before things were destabilized, and I don't know if that was just like imprecise
The
wording, but there were some
timing.
things,
Yeah.
yeah, like there were some things that made it seem that the machine of death was broken at the start of Legion
Yeah.
as opposed to end of Legion, but maybe they didn't, maybe different people were writing the story at that point, or they'll just say, oh, time works differently in the Shadowlands, when it's eternity, that's a small amount of time. But that,
Yeah.
with how like how many twists and turns there are with the story, I don't want to conclusively say that Argus was tied to the earlier bit, but it does make sense with how, Argus is bright, angry red, and the, corrupt this Nathrezim is like, oh, it's a world soul twisted by death that crushed the Arbiter. So,
Mm-hmm.
it's very likely Argus was the catalyst as well. Like, the Death Titan collided with the Arbiter. The jailer was, masterminding all these things in the background. We thought we were doing um, a great thing by defeating Argus and, imprisoning Sargeras, but actually did that just play into the jailer's plan of, oh, they finally killed this tortured being and now now, this is the final piece for my plan to dominate the Shadowlands.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it is interesting when you think that, like, you're doing something heroic, but then in reality, it created this bad chain reaction. Like, I do think that is interesting.
Yeah,
Um,
I like that too. It gives a few different shades of things instead of making it very clear.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's very likely now that Argus, you know, was the force that dismantles
Mm-hmm.
Shadowlands, even if that's not 100% and just strongly implied. We have very clear dialogue that Argus's essence is being used here to prevent the Arbiter from being reactivated in its current form.
Yeah.
Um, but that's also kind of funny because, we're saying that Pelagos seems to have, like, more compassion and, is free from all this, first one's drama of,
Mm-hmm.
protecting the jailer. So it's like, we could have ended up with a better arbiter now, with Pelagos.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, very interesting stuff there. I do wish there was
Mm-hmm.
like a book or something that laid out the timeline because I always keep thinking about like I would just like them to say outright when was the moment that the machine of death
Like they
broke.
stopped. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think we would get an answer like that, or do you think
I
it's
mean, I think
kind of
like a
nice to
short
keep it vague?
story. I think like a short story or something would be interesting. Like I don't want
Mm-hmm.
people to think that like Argus did this and then like in a year we read a book and it's like, oh, well, like Argus was only used for this one thing. It was, Xavius, who was another boss that was red and his essence, that does
Yeah.
line up better with Sarah.
Yeah.
Sarah died and at the start of Legion and then Xavius was the end boss of Emerald Nightmare, which was a lot closer to that. Um, but yeah, I mean, there was always hints that um Argus would be like a Death Titan force. A lot of the abilities early on the 7-3 PTR when they had placeholder names, they were all like, ability of the Death Titan. And then they got changed to
Mm-hmm.
nicer sounding things, but people that remembered the earlier builds remembered how there was this like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of like things called the Death Titan, and then when we go to Shadowlands, it's like, oh, maybe the Death Titan was responsible for disabling you know
Yep.
this being in the Death Realm. Um, so yeah, I mean it's interesting how it ties things together. And it's always interesting where there's a moment where you're like, oh, we thought we were being heroic, but were we playing into
Might
the
have made
jailer's
things
plan?
worse. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are pawns
Um,
once again.
yeah. I mean, you don't want to use that all the time, but I think when you do it sparingly, it can be interesting. It
Oh,
also kind of makes
definitely.
you like,
Yeah.
you're like, oh, I'm a hero. I do all this cool stuff, and you're like, well, like, am I making things better or worse?
Mm-hmm.
So it's nice to have a moment of reflection like that.
Yeah, I think a little bit of grayscale is okay. Like you said, it brings a little bit of perspective. I think if every time we do great, it's always great, that also becomes boring. So I think it's okay to keep a bit like, yeah, we thought that was great, but actually it also caused this. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So moving beyond the Arbiter, we have some interesting Sylvanas stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's still spoilers, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
before we mention it, I do want to highlight that the 9.2 PTR data mining is going on. And
It's happening live.
yeah, there is I wanted to highlight an interesting bit of dialogue where Sylvanas references Tyrande, and
Mm-hmm.
that was in last week's build, and then in this week's build we data mined high resolution cinematic models for
Oh.
Sylvanas and Tyrande. So it's there's very like after that dialogue there's very likely going to be this cinematic involving the two of them. So
Mm.
uh, yeah,
Cool.
why don't we play that interesting bit of dialogue?
Yeah.
Just a few seconds. Yeah.
Let's do that. I need to double check that I'm playing the right one. It's the one at the bottom, right?
Yeah.
And that's called voiceover. Okay.
I submit to the judgment of Tyrande Whisperwind.
Okay, there we go. It was a short one, anyways.
Yeah.
That could be hard, right? Uh, so we can keep it like that. I have no idea why the file was wrong in OBS, but yeah, that happens sometimes. But yeah, very short voiceover there from Sylvanas. And it sounds like she's accepting some kind of judgment from Tyrande, which is really interesting. Because what does this mean? What is the judgment? Is it something Tyrande has suggested? Is it maybe something that we can see in the cinematic that you just talked about, or cutscene rather?
Yeah, so I mean, it's lacking a lot of context, but
Yep.
and we also they haven't let people test the final chapter of Eternity's End on the PTR. So they might want to hide this, but there was a Game Rant interview at the start of the 9.2 PTR confirming that we'd see more interactions between them in an upcoming patch. It was something to they said I would say those two figures have a lot to I don't know if resolve is the right word, but because can you ever resolve something that happens on a scale of an entire civilization nearly being wiped out?
Yeah.
There is
Yeah.
going to be some very heavy interaction between those characters, and that is pivotal to the final conclusion of how Eternity's End and the Shadowlands saga wraps up. So, my guess is that this is some of that resolution post Jailer, where Sylvanas in her new state is not the same Sylvanas that was fighting with Tyrande and taunting her in 9-1. Even from this brief clip, she seems to accept responsibility for this, and maybe she still doesn't believe in the Arbiter and the Shadowlands system because that was used to like manipulate her. So she's showing Tyrande respect by saying that she submits to her judgment instead. And Tyrande, on the other hand, at the start of Chains of Domination, was so wrapped up in revenge for wanting to, kill Sylvanas, and was focusing on that instead of ruling and supporting her surviving people, and seemed to have a revelation after communicating with Elune, so Tyrande may have a different perspective as well, if Tyrande is all about renewal now.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because it seems like it's been decided in the story that they have both kind of decided to. They have both had a change of heart in a way. Not change of heart necessarily, but Tyrande had that experience with the loon, and then we had Sylvanas go through this whole thing of where she is more of her past self than her latest self. So this interaction is quite interesting. What is that going to mean? Does that mean Tyrande is going to just completely give her a very, very small judgment or punishment? Is it still going to be quite harsh? Maybe Tyrande won't give her a harsh punishment, but then Sylvanas kind of says, well, I think I need a punishment. I don't know. It's I feel like the part with Tyrande and Elune probably didn't have to happen here. Because I feel that Tyrande being angry would have made a bit more sense and more interesting things happen.
She's also been absent for a lot of patch 9.2. So, in that cinematic we all saw with the leaders around Sylvanas, that was unconscious. Tyrande was not there or saying anything. And she hasn't really been as part of the 9.2 story. So I don't know if Blizzard is like purposely keeping her hidden. So we don't know how Tyrande will react. And this is like a big, climactic surprise. I think that if the focus is on renewal, that I almost wonder if Tyrande would pass some judgment like, try to undo the wrongs you created. So, rescue the remaining night elves from the maw and any other souls that were unjustly sent there,
Mm-hmm.
because that would keep Sylvanas out of Azeroth, and that would focus on you know renewal and peace for
Yeah.
the night elves and justice for them, as opposed to just it's also like, even if Tyrande isn't all like, you know, happy, warm feelings, it's like, well, if I can have Sylvanas save all these souls because she's familiar with them all, like that benefits me and my people. So it works from like a strategic standpoint as well.
Yeah, I guess it's supposed to show that Tyrande being angry would have just led to um, her killing or wanting to kill Sylvanas,
Yeah.
whereas now it's going to be a lot more thinking and consideration and making use of Sylvanas's role and what she can do to help the renewal, like you said.
Yeah. Like, the people have made it seem, that being able to go into the maw is like a super, and survive it is a super big deal. So it's like if Tyrande
Mm-hmm.
is going back to trying to rule her people, um, Sylvanas could stay behind to try to do stuff right and find more night elf souls to bring to Ardenweald instead.
Mm-hmm.
There was also that one like sort of gossip dialogue line which comes up when you click on her that we
Yeah.
highlighted, I think, last thing, where she was talking about wanting to find Nathanos, which could also tie into Sylvanas searching the maw, because, we assume the jailer did something, with
Yeah.
him there as well. So it makes sense that if Sylvanas has a task to do in the Shadowlands, that she is also, trying to search for Nathanos while she is there as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting with the topic of Nathanos as well because we just
Hmm.
haven't seen him. Where is
Nope.
he? And
Yeah.
what effect is he going to have?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because it's the Horde obviously has a vacuum with Sylvanas no longer being the leader of the Forsaken, and it's like if Nathanos was still around in some form, there could have been the question of, oh well, like, could Nathanos you know be doing something with the Undercity in 10-0, but he's clearly uh dead, and
Yep.
super dead. He can't
Yeah.
travel between realms. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it'll be interesting. It could kind of be like a bittersweet end for Sylvanas, where she's not being tormented by these memories, but she's constantly reminded of them as like motivation to make things better, and maybe find night elves. And then um you know she knew Nathanos before they were
Yeah.
both twisted in
Yeah.
undeath. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's always like sort of a goal for her, like, maybe they can find each other once again. But that's also interesting, because then it's like, well, would Nathanos, is Nathanos in his what was his soul severed, and would Sylvanas be trying to make his soul full again, because he wasn't really treated well by Sylvanas, but he wasn't really himself,
Yeah.
either.
Yeah.
Um, so, but yeah, I think that I it's in tricky, because Nathanos was not really a super well liked character by the end of BFA. Like, he just seemed to know how to do everything perfectly,
Yeah.
which I guess could be explained as, oh, like, maybe Sylvanas shared some of her power. She seemed unstoppable as well. So maybe maybe after losing favor with the jailer, or having part of his soul back, he would have similar feelings of guilt, and they could both try to heal things in the Shadowlands together. um
Mm-hmm.
so but yeah, we don't exactly know. We just had this
The
interesting line.
And also
um
the last of Nathanos that we saw before obviously him getting killed and everything,
mhm.
that was or the last interaction between him and Sylvanas rather, that was that moment when he said my love to her, right?
Yeah, that was the final dialogue they had.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
then um it was
Mm-hmm.
interesting because in the pre-patch book we had, it's all Nathanos going around Azeroth trying to do this plan under her orders, but we don't actually see them interact until the very end, where she seems like annoyed that he failed, and she's super interested in the jailer and power. And you almost feel bad for Nathanos because you just see him like running around this entire book trying to
Yep.
do things for Sylvanas,
Yep.
and she just dismisses him when he, you watch him do, he's not likable, but
Everything.
he's definitely
Yeah.
trying to do
Oh
something for
yeah.
her, and she
Mm-hmm.
just like in the epilogue just kind of blows him off and focuses on the jailer.
Mm-hmm.
So
Because I think that's interesting too, the way that happened, and then now being in Shadowlands, and we have seen nothing of him. It's going to be
mm,
interesting to see how how their first interaction goes because of
yeah.
that.
And if we've seen Sylvanas have so much guilt over Teldrassil, Um, I'm sure that if she's reflecting on her past, and Nathanos was a character that meant a lot to her, even to the point where, in that 9-1 fight with Tyrande, she was very shocked to learn that Nathanos didn't survive. I'm sure that she would also feel bad
Oh yeah,
reflecting on how she treated him
exactly. Mm-hmm.
in recent expansions.
Yeah, especially if he's been suffering this whole time. We don't really know.
Or even just like, if she's reliving Teldrassil, like she would also be reliving that moment where she's yelling at Nathanos to like go ahead and, burn the city. Like she always just seems like annoyed with him, like he's not doing enough, or like he always has to like go off on some difficult, mission and get his hands dirty for her, and then she just
Yeah,
like
and I
shrugs
just
him
realized
off.
it's a new Sylvanas as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's going to make things even more, because I feel like even the bad Sylvanas that we've had lately might have
Mm,
felt a bit bad for everything that happened.
mm.
But now that it's old Sylvanas who has a different perspective, I think that would be even more interesting to see.
Yeah. So I feel like Blizzard teasing this one line was deliberate because, we didn't have Taranda's reply. We only had this, little 8-second juicy clip. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, certainly has gotten a lot of people talking about it. So
Yep.
we'll definitely have to see what comes next. Again, I think it's good when Blizzard hides story elements. I would
I
also
agree.
have been fine if we didn't get this storyline. I
If they
think
hide
that
everything.
yeah, hiding everything for the dramatic impact, I think
Mm-hmm.
is good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think that next we can play some of the other. Oh wait, why do we can? Do you want to listen to the video or show the Sylvanas cutscene? The audio file.
Um, it's hmm, it's up to you. You decide.
I think let's show the cutscene because looking at this,
Okay.
some of the dialogue with the jailer is actually part of a cutscene we're showing, so it's like redundant.
Okay.
Um,
So we go straight to this one here. Then Sylvanas
yeah.
Arrives.
Yeah, I think we've data mined some of the dialogue before, but it's good to see it all pieced together. And
Mm-hmm.
yeah, this cutscene I don't think works as well emotionally as the Pelagos and Clea one. But yeah, we'll
Yeah.
listen to it.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the others what you told me.
You all have witnessed the jailer's power firsthand. Without the means to resist his domination, we have no chance against him. Anduin may be the key, if we can save him from...
You dare speak of freeing him after all you have done?
Sylvanas held the Mournblade that bound him. Her presence may help free Anduin from the jailer's grasp.
I will never trust her.
Then trust in me.
Always, Uther. Very well. We will prepare to enter the Sepulchre and save Anduin. Together.
Yep. There it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did read these lines before, and we felt like it was a bit odd how Jaina kind of gives in, and yeah, I was hoping that by seeing the cutscene, we would understand that there's maybe more pauses in between, maybe more facials, or maybe more something. But no, it still feels just as awkward.
Yeah, so the two awkward things that stand out to me is like the first one is 30 seconds in where Jaina is very emotionally like, I will never trust
No.
her. And then like 2 seconds later, she's like, always Uther.
Okay.
Like, yeah, that's a little abrupt.
It was funny
Um,
because like she specifically also turns away, but then it's like, no, I'll always trust you. Very well, let's go.
yeah,
A little bit like a child. It was
yeah,
very very quick convincing, which feels a little bit
yeah.
off, but
The
I
other
mean, it makes
thing,
sense that maybe she would come to this conclusion, but it's just strange that it happens so fast.
yeah, this is an
Um,
example of a cutscene not showing body language super well
yeah.
because like if it was like more resigned or like she had like tension on her face or
Mm-hmm.
it's not like
The
okay
cinematic would be
like
different.
yeah it's not like I have doubts but Uther I believe in you type thing um
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, another thing is that I feel like Bolvar should have said something here. Like they were talking about
Mm,
freeing Edwin,
yeah.
and you'd think he'd have like an outburst of like, you kind of like, yes, go rescue him, like, or just I feel like he would just have thoughts that he watched over Edwin when he was a kid, so he'd feel very protective of him, I think, and he'd also have a similarly conflicted reaction that Sylvanas did this to his, adopted son, but also she's the one trying to save him now.
Yeah, I
So
don't know.
I
There's
definitely,
some.
yeah,
I feel like this has been a general thing in Shadowlands where Bolvar in general has not been used to full capacity. Um,
yeah,
he's generally quiet and outside of things when he could be the main person in many of it, or a lot of it.
yeah. I get it's weird because he was like the character on the box art,
Mm-hmm.
for Shadowlands, and he was the focus of that high definition cinematic between Sylvanas and him shown at BlizzCon.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like he's just kind of been in the background with stuff. Like even the fact
Yeah.
that we're getting the Talia and Bolvar dialogue now about what it meant to be the Lich King. It's like I feel like that should have been like a 9-0 dialogue they should have had. Like it seems very basic. So
Yeah.
uh
Exactly. I
yeah.
agree.
I
It
just
does feel
think
like
that he's
missed
kind of
opportunities a lot with him.
yeah, and it's also like, well, what is Bolvar going to do? Like everyone is talking about what Sylvanas's fate is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like shouldn't Bolvar have his own dialogue with Uther? That they
Yeah.
were
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
both used by the Lich King. Because like Uther was not sorry, I'm getting all the characters scrambled. I was going to say that what
Bolvar and
Bolvar,
Jailer.
like they're both paladins. I feel like they'd have similar, just like a similar experience of being tied to the light, and then how that got twisted after their interactions with the Lich King. Um and yeah, I just feel like and like I said, going back to Sylvanas, everyone's like, what's gonna happen to her? But it's like, well, what's going to happen to Bolvar? Like, will he
Yeah.
go back to Azeroth? Does the Alliance will the Alliance know that their, former leader was turned into this? Like, will he be in
Mm-hmm.
Stormwind? Will he try to help souls find their place? Like, I just think that he is missing a lot of development, and they made it seem like he'd be a force equal to Sylvanas at the start with their elaborate cinematic.
Yeah, definitely. It feels like it was hinted in a way, implied, like where they put Bolvar as an important character at the beginning, because of the helmet and everything that happened. But then it kind of just became a prop. It kind of became like, yeah, this was needed just to make this happen. Whereas I think they could have kept Bolvar as a very big figure in everything that's happening. He's connected to so many things, like not just a helmet in the Shadowlands, but he's also connected to Anduin, who's now, being a mind. I don't know what to call it, but
Yeah,
not
dominate.
being
Yeah.
dominated. Yeah. So I feel like Bolvar is connected to so many things that he could have definitely been a lot more central in all of the stories. So it's
It
definitely
could also be.
missed opportunity. Also because he looks so cool. It's
Yeah,
a
his model is awesome.
Yeah, his model is awesome. So he could have been used in every cutscene, every cinematic, everything. He could have been a center of it all.
I think that there's also like a lot of guilt to be explored as well because so
Mm-hmm.
many of the jailer's victims had their soul split,
Mm-hmm.
and then they were warped to do things, and Bolvar certainly went through a transformation, becoming the Lich King, but he didn't have his soul split, and like he
Yeah.
still you know, loved his daughter. So I think there could be interesting reflections on um how like, he was treated differently than other souls, like maybe, I think he would feel bad and want to help undo some of the jailer's legacy as well, or
Mm-hmm.
reflecting on his place as one of the jailer's failures. Um
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think that they could have done a lot more with him, that
Definitely.
they just didn't do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the only one thing I almost wonder if this could be a future thing is you know how there is some like hints that there could be a Dragonflight expansion in the future, like that artwork for the Dragon Mount bundle. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe it's like, oh, Bolvar was also transformed due to like some of the power of the dragonflights. Like maybe Bolvar will continue forward with us if there's anything with uh dragons, with how that played a role in his fate as well. But yeah, I definitely think that you could have a lot of high impact emotional things if they just did more with Bolvar, and that could have drawn old school players into
Yeah, that as well.
the
Mm-hmm.
story as well. Like a lot of lapsed players from Wrath or, even Classic who were like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, like Wolvar was a badass, and you know,
Mm-hmm.
the Wrathgate cinematic, I think that those sort of things would have been hype. So yeah, definitely
Mm-hmm.
feels underutilized, and this cutscene is kind of like a good example of
Showing
why
that.
there are
Yeah.
telling issues with Shadowlands, like underutilized characters, not having enough room to let the story breathe. So, always Uther, just stuff like that. How it could be a very complex, like deep emotional story, but they don't have time to involve all the characters they need to,
Mm-hmm.
or show like the layers of nuance.
Mm-hmm. Like, I think it's been nice the way that Uther has been involved quite a lot. But I think Bolvar could have been like at least as much involved as well. Because Uther was a nice addition to this too. It's also a very old character and it's a lot of story behind it. Obviously, the parallels to Sylvanas with the soul. But I think Bolvar also could have been a very big character here for sure.
I mean, I know that they can't highlight every character each patch, but it does sometimes feel bad where it's like, well, we can only have like one character show up. So it's like, well, Uther has the victim of you know, Arthas, Wise,
Mm-hmm.
former paladin, Bolvar, you have to be in the background, or, even in BFA, it's like, Chandris is here assisting Jaina, and Najatar, Tyrande, the main enemy of Ashara is not present. We only have space for one elf. Like sometimes it just feels that um
Yeah,
they don't have
it
enough
shouldn't need to be
open
that.
character slots. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. No, they should leave more space for it. I understand in big things like cinematics, but in these kind of situations, I don't think it should take that much budget or time or anything to be able to fit in more characters. I don't think
Yeah.
these cutscenes they're literally just taken from in-game
Mm.
models, right? So they should be able to make plenty of these. and give more lines. I mean, they don't even have to make cutscenes, they just have to put more lines in quests and things as well.
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't know if they're hiding this part of the story, although it's not Shadowlands finale, but I'd be curious to see how characters react to Anduin returning. Like, you know, we were just saying that we didn't see Bolvar reacting to the news that, Anduin was in this raid, so it's like, wouldn't Bolvar and Anduin being able to talk face to face again, that would be pretty epic. And I don't know if they're hiding that, although that's like halfway through the story, not at the end of the story. But I think you could have some emotional reunions with Anduin and Bolvar as well. Um But yeah, why don't we discuss the jailer a little bit? We have an interesting model.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
A model we don't know exactly where to place.
Yeah. So, um,
Here it is.
it looks like, definitely broken, seen some wear. And it looks like an early prototype of the jailer, because it's got that kind of simplistic, heavy gold, Titan prototype armor. There are some similar features like the hole in the jailer's chest, as well
Yep.
as some of the runes on his armor and shoulders as well.
Here's a close
Um,
up.
yeah. No nipples though.
Yep,
Yeah, the
no
prototype
no
never
nipples
does.
yet.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's interesting because there could be a simple or complex reason for this model. The simple one is when we defeat the jailer, they need his corpse for something, and this could be his corpse. But I'm not sure if that's the case because he would like gain golden bits of armor, which I don't know. I don't think that would make sense. But it could be a corpse after we defeat him for like some epilogue stuff. But an interesting other idea is that um, if we if Zereth Mortis can create like alternate versions of first ones, and we have a raid encounter where we fight the other four Pantheon leaders as prototypes, and they look kind of unfinished with like energy balls where their stomachs should be, instead of being fully formed. um it's interesting to be like, was this created by did someone create a prototype jailer in the past and then kill it off for, whatever reason? Because if you look at the third image, you can see very clearly that there's this sphere in his torso. Um, so
Oh yeah.
it definitely looks like kind of more like robotic, not fully fleshed out at that point. So, but yeah, you're wondering like, you know, um, everyone thought the jailer was a fairly new creation, like a punishment by the arbiter, and the Primus was tied to domination magic. And when you see this, you're like, oh, if this was much earlier, like, were there alternate versions of the jailer that were there previously that were kind of being created and destroyed for whatever reason? So maybe we'll learn about that. I don't know. Maybe we'll learn about that later on. But it's It's an interesting, cool model. I think. And hopefully it's not just a corpse in the background. But
Yeah,
yeah,
hopefully
glad to
not.
see what it's
It
used
will be
for.
interesting if it has more backstory.
Yeah, it's also interesting because in the prototype pantheon, you fight like all the other members, but not the jailer. So it's like, did the jailer like it's like did the jailer himself like print this? Then was like, oh no, like I don't want this other version of me, or like did he create it to kill it? You don't know, but it's interesting how there's this sort of alternate model of the jailer floating out there. Um and Yeah, I think it looks pretty cool. But yeah, we don't know too much about it. maybe we'll learn more in this PTR build, which is still chugging along, although
Yeah, it's
mostly
got
seems
just
to
got
be
live during
about
the show.
mostly seems to be about like class tuning,
Mm-hmm.
legendaries, those sorts of things. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah. Another jailer thing, this was tied to some of the audio files we were debating, highlighting earlier, was that we have a brief cutscene for the introduction to the jailer's fight as the final boss in the raid. So why don't we play this quickly, and then we can highlight some interesting visual details from this short cutscene.
That sounds good. Jailer raid cutscene. Okay, I can't find it.
Do you want me to relink it, or?
No, it's okay. I have it. It's just I just don't see it in OBS.
Oh.
So that means I just need to. Oh, I think this should be it. Jailer raid cutscene. Okay, I dragged it in. Okay, we should be. This should be it. Hopefully it's not too loud. I'll try to drag it down ASAP. Let's go. All right, there we go. Okay, there we go. Apparently the cutscene just did not have much sound.
Yeah, there's
But
more
yeah,
lines. Yeah.
yeah. There's a few
So,
lines, and I'll put them on the screen as well as we
yeah.
talk about it.
So the big I mean, the dialogue emphasizes what we learned with Argus, that it definitely seems that the jailer is masterminding a lot of things and set a lot of events in motion that maybe we thought we had the upper hand on, but at actually, 5D chess, he actually
Yep.
was in charge of that. Um, so, for example, with Argus as the example, it's like, we thought, you know, by defeating Argus, we both weakened the Burning Legion and fell, and we also then sent Argus to the Shadowlands, which destabilized the Arbiter. Like we kind of helped the jailer in two ways at the same time, or I guess three ways, because we also had Sargeras plunging the sword into Azeroth,
Yep.
possibly, weakening it. Um, the other interesting thing is that as the camera zooms in and rotates around Zoval, we see that he's looking at a globe of Azeroth, and the continent that he zooms in on is specifically Northrend. And that's significant because that is where the expansion started, with the veil between Shadowlands and Icecrown ruptured. And then we know that Icecrown is a big place for the jailer, as that's where the Lich King resides that he created, and the Lich King wears the Helm of Domination that, he crafted. So, we know in the encounter that the jailer is going to be attacking Azeroth. So if he's specifically staring at Northrend, that's likely where his attacks will be focused on at first. Uh and also just like the colors and like pose of him staring at the celestial map, it's also kind of similar to Algalon the Observer, who you know has some parallels to the jailer in that he wanted to re-originate Azeroth and destroy all life as we know it. Definitely seems like the jailer, wants to unmake reality, forge it in his image, and there are like abilities that are very clearly like Zoval launches a volley of missiles at Azeroth, decreasing Azeroth's health by up to 20%. So he is definitely trying to do something to Azeroth. And I think Icecrown's interesting
Poor
because
world.
one could argue like, oh, why isn't he, targeting Silithus if that's the location for the sword? But it definitely seems that Northrend has a significance because that's where players were passing through to the Shadowlands.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we
So
were there right
yeah, there could
before.
also be a threat of like if Iceground is the place that's delayed, like how can
Yeah.
we get it back ourselves if he's trying to like weaken that
Mm-hmm.
one area specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm also, I mean, like, it makes me wonder, like, if he's attacking Azeroth, like, how is that going to be shown in?
Visibly, like.
Yeah, like, like if you're just a citizen of Azeroth, there's gonna be like, like death magic floating through the air, like, you know, will we be,
Meteors crashing.
yeah, like canonically, I mean, like you can prevent some of these attacks. So it's gonna be like, oh, canonically we prevented if we defeat the jailer, that means that he didn't get any of these horrible attacks off. But it just makes you wonder. It sounds very high stakes, and it makes you wonder if some areas of Azeroth will be
Maybe permanently damaged.
transformed,
Mm-hmm.
like a cataclysm type situation, and then that could be an
Mm.
excuse to like have a revamped, Northrend, and redo some of those zones.
Interesting. I actually hope that happens. I love it when old zones get a revamp.
Yeah.
Like as much as I was upset about a lot of things going away with Cataclysm revamp, it was
Hmm.
nice to see the revamp in Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, and we haven't really seen a big scale revamp since then. So I think it would be really cool to see a revamped Northrend. Hopefully, though, they do not remove things in that process, like remove NPCs that give certain quests or that drop certain items to make items go away from the game. We don't want that, but I think a revamp would be really cool.
Something else that is interesting is that when Cataclysm came about, people were really sad because there wasn't that archival version of the game, and now we have
Yeah,
all the zones present in Classic. And there's lots of
also
speculation
true.
that Wrath Classic could be on the way. So like a 10.0 expansion with some Northrend focus lining up with Wrath Classic, and encouraging people to play through both versions of the zone. That could be interesting. I definitely do think that even if they update the zones and then there's like a classic version of Northrend, that it still is good for people on retail to play the old versions because like so many important things happen there, and I think it's not great that the whole Wrathgate questline got removed, especially because that's
Yeah.
like pretty like focal to Bolvar's character development. And also, in BFA, like Sourfang's as well, with the loss of his son. So I'm not a fan of removing stuff, even if you can
Yeah.
play it on a different version of the game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm not a fan of that either. Could be something small like transmog. It could be toys. It could be
Yeah, going back
pets.
to the pattern, there were those like if you did all the quests in Northrend, I think before Cataclysm you could get like special cloak patterns or whatnot.
Oh,
Like there were
yeah.
definitely some extra rewards there.
Mm-hmm. Yep, true.
So
But yeah, a revamped Northrend would be interesting.
yeah. Another thing, I think our final Shadowlands thing is that
Mm-hmm.
the build from last week added this very interesting book called a Cipher Lore Codex. And it's a book that is originally in the first one's language, so when you first get onto the zone, you can't read much of it, and it's like
Mm-hmm.
the weird cipher system. But as you learn uh, more and more,
Mm-hmm.
you can read more sentences in it, which is neat.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think
And
that's a cool little thing. It's like progressing something, and I think they also said this is not going to be power related,
right,
and I
um,
think that's a plus. I think that's cool.
yeah. This kind of reminds me of when you would gain artifact knowledge, you could like read more about your artifact, and there were like cool things about the artifact like towards the end, like older owner
Mm.
like plot twists or
Yeah,
the
yeah,
weapon
like
doing
more lore
like
about
really
it.
crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um And this book is interesting because it's definitely written. It sounds like it sounds very like reverent and religious. Like it's not written from the point of view of like a broker or like someone trying to sound like sassy or doing their own research. It sounds just like very like poetic and powerful. So I think that's cool
Mm-hmm.
to have something exist like that on Azeroth. And there's a lot of it can sound sort of generic or just like like celestial, awesome, which is cool for world building. But there's this one really interesting line of a meditation on existence, and the passage states that um the light cannot be defined without the dark. To have
Mm.
one requires the other. And there's been a lot of, you know, hints in the game that, light and shadow are at odds with each other, like we saw in that Legion patch, and like that led to a lot of speculation that we're going to have, light versus void as the two main enemies, as opposed to, alliance versus horde. We've got like Terralion and Ilaria. We have Anduin, as like the golden boy that had like the ominous hints of shadow magic. And I think the race pages were even updated recently on the website
Oh
to
yeah. Mm-hmm.
have like this kind of ominous line on Velen's page, where it's like the immortal prophet Velen believes that a great war between the darkness and light is fast approaching, and that Azeroth will be its principal battleground. So you know, it definitely sounds like these two forces that have always kind of been um at odds with each other. Like you remember in 7-3, it's like Terralion and Ilaria couldn't like touch because they had, different cosmic
Mm-hmm.
forces. It definitely seems that these two forces actually need each other to be balanced.
Yeah.
And we're heading in a direction where where we don't seem to realize that. So hopefully the leaders of Azeroth grind up their Zereth Mortis and read this book because
So they can
you know
learn.
yeah, I mean, we've also seen, we've had like the Burning Legion expansion, we've had like the life versus death expansion,
Mm-hmm.
and it definitely seems that we could be due to explore uh light and shadow some more at
Mm-hmm.
some point.
I think the
Even,
study of
with
opposites is always like a very popular concept. I think it's a very interesting concept overall. I mean, you could even talk about how the topic of light being bad, for example, that was touched in
yeah.
VOD even. Um, this
Yeah, the
topic
Magmar
of
Orc quest line, that could be something.
and learning about the Lightbringer, Draenei and everything. It's light forged, not Lightbringer.
Yeah.
It shows us like what light can be and everything. And I think having these sort of yin and yang ideas um, are always quite interesting. So I think it's nice to see. Also, I wanted to mention, because I got reminded, seeing this text of like language that makes no sense, and then sometimes there's like a few words that you can understand in English,
Yeah.
reminds me of No Man's Sky. I don't know if you've played that game.
Well, yeah, why don't you explain to the chat? That sounds interesting.
Yeah, so in No Man's Sky, there's different factions, and when you go and visit different planets or different areas, you can find artifacts from them, and you work on your reputation with them by finding more artifacts, for example. And at first, when you find texts from them, you can't really understand, except, or even conversations with them when you talk to the NPCs, you don't really understand everything they say. And then the more that you learn, the more you can make sense of their lines, of the NPCs and artifact texts as well. So it kind of reminded me of that when I saw it.
Yeah.
But
To be
I think
really
it's a nice
cool
concept.
for that'd also be really cool for archaeology as well, I think. Like,
Mm-hmm.
there was interesting flavor text with books, and it would be cool if you could just, you know, research and just learn more about like the world building as well through
Mm-hmm.
that. I wish they hadn't abandoned archaeology. It definitely seems fun. Even like people are still really interested in Legion archaeology because the rewards were so good. So
I
you
don't
know,
want more
I think it was
achievements though. Those archaeology achievements were
yeah,
not
it's true.
fun to grind. But you
Yeah.
know, if you remove the the RNG achievements, then yeah, I'm fine with it. Also, if they would add random NPCs in the world that you can talk to that have like interesting lines that can only be made sense if you've done enough archaeology, I think that's quite interesting.
Yeah.
Like not power related, just random flavor things.
Yeah. Is there anything more with the book? Oh yeah, so I guess I'm gonna poke work chat to see if they have any interesting articles coming up soon that we should highlight. But so as I'm
Okay.
doing that, we can briefly discuss um the
Spoiler down.
Legion time walking that just ended. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So spoiler tag down. Um, there we go. Oh, wrong side, that side. Spoiler tag down. It is safe to listen now, even if you do not want to hear any spoilers. As we said at the beginning of the show, the PTR has had a new build pushed in, and the people over at Wowhead are frantically working through it, and there's probably going to be new articles every 20, 30 minutes
Yeah.
covering whatever is going on. So you can check that out on the website. If there's any like super interesting news that we see while we're still live, we'll of course mention it. But so far it's been a bit, you know, maybe not very exciting, but little updates. There's been some tuning on certain tier set bonuses and things like that. You can check all of that out on the Wowhead website. It's not really worthy of us going through each spec to discuss what is being changed,
Yeah.
especially when it's not even final, potentially. But yeah, the Legion time walking came to an end, which means that the Mage Tower was removed. For now, it is coming back. And if the calculations were done correctly, I think we used to say it's going to be in 6 months, but now people are saying it's 2 months.
I think yeah, it's ended up more like 3 months.
Okay, maybe more like
Let
three
me
months.
yeah. Let me I think we highlighted when I think it's planned to come back in April.
Okay,
So
so
yeah, like
potentially
three-ish
3 months then.
yeah.
I heard some rumors of March, but I didn't actually look it up myself. Hopefully, I would like to see it happen more often, but at least it's not one of those things where it's here and then gone forever. So it's a little bit of a positive. But yeah, it's interesting. The Mage Tower was very popular. You could see by just going there, and you see tons of people outside the tower. People selling consumables have made a lot of money. People who have been buying consumables to attempt these towers have lost a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's been popular to min max. It's been popular to craft old gear, to buy gems for them, to buy old enchants for the low item level gear, high level enchants for the high level stuff, and yeah, I went in there myself and I managed to get my mount, which was. To get the mount, you needed to do the 7 different instances of the Mage Tower,
Yeah.
which means that you had to do it on 7 different types of specs. Yeah, specs. So, for example, if you do the Agatha fight on your Feral Druid, you cannot go and do Elemental Shaman because it's the same instance. So, in order for it to count towards
Right.
the seven
Yeah.
7 instances, I mean 7 challenge, exactly 7 out of 7 challenge. But you can go across different specs, and if you have one class can you know, on average, do 3 different challenges, unless you're a druid or a demon hunter, then it's 2 or 4. So you can go in there, and if you gear, let's say you're mage, then you can do 3 different instances on that same character, and then you want to go on a tank to do the tank one, you want to go on a healer to do the healer one, and then you probably want to go on a melee class to do some of the challenges that is not available to the mage, and do 7 of them, get your mount, happy, done. If you did not manage to do that, don't worry, the tower will be back in March or April. And in the meantime, what you can do is go and farm some old gear with some sockets. There's some popular trinkets out there, like the seed pod is an interesting one, a very powerful one from the first boss of Emerald Nightmare, which is right by the entrance of where you walk in, so it's very fast to get in there. I think most classes can solo it, and yeah, if you're interested in Mage Tower, then that's the best advice I can give. You can go and farm some old gear that might help you for next time.
Yeah, I definitely think it was the right move to extend the Mage Tower for
Over the
the
holidays,
whole
yeah.
month.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I definitely think that it seemed really popular, and there should be more things like that. Either have the Mage Tower up more, or if they're going to keep rotating it, always have like a time walking event up with a cool, interesting thing to do. Like have like a Burning Crusade flavored challenge, or like a Wrath challenge. But yeah, hopefully Blizzard will have seen the success of this and try to do more in this vein, doing smart things with old content. The consumables that were popular, many were from old expansions. The gear that was popular, many were from old expansions. Even the reward were, inspired by Burning Crusade. So it overall just seemed to be a good way of reusing old content in a smart, efficient way. And I think that doing more of that is the key. It's funny because we also learned this week that like shards of domination aren't working
Yeah,
with
they're
like 9.2
going to be
content.
inactivated in
Yeah.
9.2. Well,
And
all
it's
that
like
time that the devs spent creating them was a waste.
so it's like on one hand you have like the Mage Tower, which is cool to use, and then you look at shards and you're just like, man, like how many one-off systems has Blizzard made that just doesn't have any value you know in the future.
Yeah.
Like I
Just
look at
stick
some
to
like
sockets. Stick to
yeah,
sockets.
like I look at the class guides on WoW with the table of contents and I'm just like, oh, when the 10.0 hits, we'll, delete the best covenant page, we'll delete the legendary page, the shard page, the conduit page, the page for every covenant, you know?
Yep.
Like, the twisting corridors page, like there's just so much stuff that will just lose value and it's kind of sad. So,
Yeah, it's just
but
such a
yeah,
waste as well. Like
I think
it's
yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say that by disabling the system, the expansion specific stuff, for the Mage Tower, it helps with like, just overall balance and tuning. And it's like people still found ways to min-max with, old gear and consumables. It just was nice not having to be like, well, if you want to do the Mage Tower, first you have to like, you know, pick the right covenant and do all these things. It was nice having a challenge that wasn't super tied to Shadowlands
Oh
stuff.
yeah, yeah. I think that was intentional, so that they can keep doing it for future expansions, and I hope it will continue to be in mind when they design new things, because it's like from a consumer point of view, or like a player point of view, it's very confusing. You come in every
Mm.
patch and there's like an entirely new thing that you have to learn, and if you happen to, let's say, play very casually in that patch, you maybe barely even learned how to use it, and then it's gone. So it's not very fun as a player if you're not playing full time, not properly learning it, to have something come and go so fast.
Yeah.
I think if they like domination sockets, the essence of it is basically a socket, right? Then they could have, if they wanted to fancy it up a little bit, they could have gone back to something that we've had in the past: meta sockets. Keep it
Yeah.
simple. Put an extra meta socket in the helms, and then make Shadowlands specific meta jumps. Then it's not too confusing. It goes back to something we've had before. And sure, maybe the meta gem won't be active in next expansion, but it's not an entire system that probably is wasting UI dev time. It's wasting like balancing dev time. It's wasting like so much money and resources that is just thrown out the window, and money is lost for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, even and then on the flip side of other content that just gets lost, we have things like um so many expansion specific quests. We mentioned Wrathgate earlier, but there's also things like the Warlord rings or, the Mob cloak, and all of those just get lost. So it'd be cool if Time Walking had a way for players to learn more about those really interesting quest lines, which, yeah, did take a lot of time to develop. And, like, for example, in the Mop one, you see Anduin and Rathian, like, talking about leadership and, like, agreeing on some things and disagreeing on others. And it makes the uh like the whole N'Zoth storyline make a lot more sense, but you can't actually do the mop thing in the game
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
So it would be nice if, I don't know, time walking was like a vehicle to bring back other old interesting things that took a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean they've revamped the old zones so much, and everything is under Chromie time and everything as well. I feel like it shouldn't be
Yeah.
too difficult to bring those things back.
Yeah, agreed.
To let people, because people who felt cool for having the legendary ring,
Mhm.
it's diminished at this point, you know. It was cool
Yeah.
for some time. It's like, aha, it was gone. Or having the legendary cloak, which had the really cool effects, the visual effects on them. And for people who may have gotten it on, let's say, more than one class, it's like, oh, this is really cool. You know, these two
Mm.
clothes, they look a little bit different from each other. But no one feels cool about it anymore when it's been like 10 years. You know, it's been so
Yeah.
long that it's no longer cool. So at this point, why not let other people go back and farm all those things, especially the ones that requires raids. It means that if people are not soloing them, they probably are soloing them, to be fair.
Mm.
But if they weren't that simplified, maybe it would even make some people make some groups for it.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely hopefully they can build upon the momentum with time walking. There's lots of
Mm-hmm.
potential there.
Oh, yes, so much
Um
potential. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And I think also, just looking at analytics with the site, because, there were server issues with Final Fantasy, I feel like a lot of people with the Mage Tower continuing to be up, if they couldn't play other games, they returned to WoW for the Mage Tower
Oh yeah.
after nostalgia. At least that's what we saw in like mid-December. So,
Did you guys
um
see that as a spike in interest on the website?
yeah. So, and we were thinking it was going to be like more of like a chill time for us because we're like, oh, people will be playing other games, but the Mage Tower was people were very interested in that, so I think they did that as like, I'm not going to super grind all these things in WoW, but I'm going to do this one thing in WoW as I like, wait to play other games.
And I
And it
think that's the
Yeah.
problem with WoW, or like a solution to the main
Yeah.
problem of WoW, which is if you want to go in and just do something, except for queuing up for LFR, you
Mm,
normally can't. Because if you want to do
right.
raids, you have to prep your character. If you want to do PvP, you have to spam BGs, farm the honor. There's so many loops you have to go through
Mm,
to get to properly play the game that most people don't bother. And the Mage Tower was just log in and go in. And then if you're
yeah.
hitting your head against the wall, you might decide to go back and maybe farm something, maybe farm some consumables, maybe farm some old gear to, make your job a little bit easier. But it's very nice and chill. It's fun to be able to just play instead of like, yeah, I'm just gonna grind this for 2 weeks and then I can play.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely seems there's a lot of promise there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's about it for our show notes. But I just wanted to highlight something that actually happened during the show.
Oh,
And that's
okay.
we revamped the very, very top of Wowhead's front page. So it's a lot more cleaner to navigate between like live and PTR
Mm,
and classic and Burning Crusade. And our Diablo stuff now has its own homepage as well and blue trackers. So if you're like, oh, where's Wowhead's Diablo stuff, you can be like, oh, it's actually like all here. It's not just like, well, it's like on the front page with like a bunch of other stuff, but no homepage. So, really happy that the devs set that all up,
that's
and
awesome.
it just looks cleaner as well. So, if WoW ever adds like Wrath, we can just add a line to the top being like Retail Classic, Burning Crusade, Wrath, and
Wrath.
not have
Mm-hmm.
like all those red buttons next to the search bar keep getting bigger and bigger. And
Yeah.
I think there might be some cache issues with the search box, but if you start typing things into the search box now, it looks um it looks a lot nicer and it lets you see more things. Um
Mm-hmm.
like it doesn't look, it's not like this tiny thing that shows like 8 lines and like guides are left out. So the search box and the game navigation on Wowhead just had a big revamp go through, and we hope you
Cool.
guys like it. We'll be modernizing more parts of the site throughout 2022, but this was like a just like a big nice organizational
Mm-hmm.
step to get done, because as we keep adding like more versions of WoW to the site, the old way of swapping between games was getting like very out of control. So we wanted to just make things be nicer, as well as um just give people a place they could go to see all the Diablo stuff if they wanted that, and like, not the
Mm-hmm.
WoW things. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
A lot of these type of things are underestimated. Like organizing a website is so important, and
Yeah.
it's it really makes and breaks a website for me and probably for a lot of people. Like when you use a website and it doesn't make sense and you get frustrated because you don't understand, you're less likely to want to use it. So
Yeah.
working on revamping a lot, and I know that you guys at Wowhead do it. I think that's awesome to see, because it is important for users to be able to quickly switch between retail and classic. Like when I search for an item, and having the ability to just swap between the two really quickly to make sure I'm looking at the right game is
Yeah.
very useful. So
Yeah. Or
that's
it's like,
awesome.
what if they ever release like a Warcraft mobile game, and then it's like, that doesn't, that's not just the same database. It's like, well, how do we do navigation for that? So we just had to, we're kind of like outgrowing the old way. It's not just like swap between, retail, like PTR and classic, as like more versions of the game come out, and then
Yeah.
like more games that aren't an MMO but like are inspired by the WoW universe. So
Mm-hmm.
um we wanted to get this just sorted out, so any future stuff we did would just look a lot more organized. So really happy for the dev team. After the show, I'm going to point out a few little bugs I found. If you do find a bug, you can send it to feedback@wowhead.com. But overall, I think it just looks so much nicer. Like, I've just been
Mm-hmm.
staring at this for the second half of the show, and I've just been feeling like
Yeah.
it looks like nice, like
Yeah, I can
organization,
imagine.
clean, tidy.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Because you work on this, so you're staring at this a lot, so
Yeah.
you feel the update even more than we do.
Yeah. So I'm
Yeah,
really happy that got out.
that's awesome. And I think with
Um,
that, we're
yeah.
wrapping everything up, wrapping today's show. Thank you guys very much for watching. And it was a lot of lore and spoilers stuff, lots of cutscenes to talk about, some of which we had seen lines previously in data mined lines, but this time we got to actually see the cutscenes themselves, so that was interesting. The shows, as usual, always go on to YouTube, so if you want to catch these shows, or if you maybe didn't watch the whole show, or if you want something on in the background while you're, I don't know, doing your dishes or whatever, you can always have the episodes playing from YouTube. I don't know if we have a command for that, but maybe we could have the YouTube channel being linked. And we also there was something else I wanted to say that we also do, but now I forgot. But yeah,
We
the
do a lot of
episodes
stuff.
will be on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll be back next week. It was the first show of the year, and it's great to be back so that we can talk
Yeah.
about everything and keep on track with everything. Oh, there you go. All episodes will go here. There it is. There it is. So you
Awesome.
can keep track of all of it. And yeah, we'll be back next week, and we'll see what is new then. What is it going to be? January 19th. Maybe another build or so? Maybe something
Yeah,
crazy
or
will happen.
maybe
Who knows?
I think there's some hints that there's still some stuff we're looking at with this PTR, so there may be some interesting stuff
Mm-hmm.
to cover. Um,
Maybe more hints towards the patch date for 9.2. Who knows?
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all
Um,
wondering, so we'll see.
yeah, some like I think double legendaries are finally being tested, maybe some interesting models, so
Mm-hmm.
we'll see where that goes.
Yep.
I just saw we posted a conduit thing like 15 minutes ago,
Mm.
so definitely keep looking at Wowhead's front page. We still have some stuff from today that is going up that takes a little more time to research.
The conduit update I want to see is there's no more item level on conduits. Nice.
uh, well, this was, learn and upgrade all conduits to this item level.
Oh no.
So yeah.
Okay.
All
Well
right.
then, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to follow the channel. here as well
Yeah,
to
definitely.
always keep track. We always tweet out the episode, so if you're watching this episode, you may not miss it if you're following us on Twitter. But sometimes there's also shows that go through data mining, and that's usually
Yeah.
with Stefan as part of the Wowhead team. And if you are interested in seeing how data mining is, how it's done, and how things are put together, that's usually on this show. So if you follow the channel, then you'll be notified when that goes live. All
Yeah.
right, and that's it from us today. Bye. See you all
Bye.
next week.
See you next week.
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year's again. Bye.
Bye.